As you know, the last year has certainly taken its toll of publicly principled men. In the world of politics, Gary did Donna, and among preachers, Jim took Jessica. But because he was the paragon of public virtue, because he was the preacher so intolerant of the sins of other preachers, the fall of Jimmy Swaggart seems even more melodramatic. Perhaps preeminent among the televangelists, Swaggart's story is less a story of religion than it's a story of power, money, hypocrisy, and lust.
I've sinned against you, my Lord. And I would ask that your precious blood would wash and cleanse every stain.
It was the 21st of February when we were treated to this extraordinary display of public humiliation. Televangelist Jimmy Swaggart begging the Lord's and his congregation's forgiveness.
I have sinned against you. And I have brought disgrace and humiliation and embarrassment upon you. I beg your forgiveness.
And by most accounts, Mr. Swaggart had plenty to apologize for.
To me, I think he's kind of perverted, or, you know, because talking about some of the things that we've talked about, you know, in the rooms, you know, I wouldn't want him around my children.
Did you ever talk about God and religion?
No.
Not once?
No.
This is Deborah Murphy. Although several other hookers have surfaced, she allegedly is the prostitute photographed, accompanying Swaggart to motel rooms. She's shown here being interviewed by reporter Joe Giardina of our New Orleans affiliate, WVUE.
Sometimes I'd see him drive down the street every week, you know, maybe he wouldn't stop unless he knew I was there, and sometimes once or twice a month.
I do not call it a mistake, a mendacity. I call it sin.
Through Swaggart's confession and the testimony of various others allegedly involved, the story that emerges is of a man addicted to pornography and to sexual risk.
He asked me if he could take me home and get dressed up, like in a dress or something, you know, no underwear, and ride around, you know, and just maybe in the evening, and take my clothes off, maybe get out of the car and just get back in, you know, so he said it turned him on.
I know that so many would ask, why? Why? I have asked myself that 10,000 times, through 10,000 tears.
Perhaps the public would be more sympathetic were it not for his monumental hypocrisy. It was Swaggart, for example, who'd engineered the downfall of Jim Bakker, his television rival, by informing national officials of the Assemblies of God Church of Bakker's affair with church secretary Jessica Hahn.
I'm going to ask every individual in this building that can, will only take about 3 or 4 minutes, that can, to stand with me and say, Brother Swaggart, I want to give $50 to help on the construction of that television production center. And when you stand, I want to give you one of these. This is our brand new album.
Until sex scandals swept through the ranks of the televangelists, Swaggart, like some of the others, was most criticized for allegations of personal financial enrichment.
Frances has clothes given to her. I had a suit the other day given to me. She was given a coat the other day, a mink coat, I think it was, by a very wealthy lady. She was given, she's been given several rings.
In this award-winning documentary, reporter John Camp of our Baton Rouge affiliate WBRZ first revealed how the Swaggart family had profited from its far-flung television ministry.
You're going to get an awful lot of criticism. I don't know what type of lifestyle that Jim Bakker lived. I don't know what type of lifestyle that Jerry Falwell lives. I don't really have an awful lot to say. I'll be glad to answer anything you have on my lifestyle, but I can't really speak out on theirs because I don't know that much about it.
Or when you live in a big house?
Well, I have a house that is 2 bedrooms, has a big steep roof, big porches. It looks a lot bigger than it is. It's got 2 bedrooms, a big living room, a small dining room, a kitchen, and a tiny den that I'm going to make bigger. That's it.
Swaggart's home is not your typical 2-bedroom home. The residence and property are assessed at a fair market value of $1,060,000. The home itself, with its swimming and wading pools and beautifully designed patio, is valued at $776,000. And the 14 acres on which it is located is valued at $287,000.
We desperately need your help. We are at this time about $5 million in arrears with unpaid bills.
Remember Burt Lancaster's brilliant portrayal of the fictional minister Elmer Gantry? It showed his evolution from charismatic small-town preacher to big-time success, but one flawed by earthly desires. It was art imitating Jimmy Swaggart's life, a real life forever changed, when a private eye hired by a rival preacher caught him at a motel with a hooker.
And I seen this guy run into room 12 real fast, like he didn't want to be seen. And so I told Jimmy about it. And so he got nervous and left, and I went outside, and he had a flat tire when he went out. I seen a man pull up as he was changing his tire and was talking to him. You know, I don't think they was having a very good conversation because Mr. Swaggart went to shake his hand, and he wouldn't shake his hand.
The man was Marvin Gorman, a pastor banished from his church and his own TV ministry after Swaggart had ruined his career, publicly accusing Gorman of adultery. Swaggart's public morality had come face to face with his private hypocrisy.
I do not lay the fault or the blame or the charge at anyone else's feet. For no one is to blame but Jimmy Swaggart. I take the responsibility, I take the blame, I take the fault.
The fault and the fall. In producing this program, we were fortunate that the best investigative reporting on this story was done by 2 of our Louisiana affiliate stations, WVUE of New Orleans and WBRZ of Baton Rouge. Award-winning reporter John Kemp of BRZ joins us now via satellite from Baton Rouge with the latest on the Swaggart story. Jim, welcome and congratulations on your reporting. I understand even Reverend Swaggart said that it was accurate, objective, and professional.
Yes, that surprised me somewhat when he made that comment during his confession and contrition remarks of last Sunday or Sunday a week ago.
I understand that Deborah Mumphrey, the prostitute interviewed by WVUE, was asking $250,000 for her story from the National Enquirer. Before that publication paid that kind of money, they gave her a lie detector test, which she failed. She took it under the influence of crack and cocaine, John. So that might have explained away her failure of the lie detector test. But how many of the hookers allegedly who have gone with Swaggart have you interviewed?
I've interviewed personally 2, and the station has interviewed 1 more. We have talked with 3 who maintained that they had some contact with Jimmy Swaggart, either through conversations or in the instance of 2 prostitutes that I had talked with actually were paid by him to perform certain acts last year.
Tell me, what is the portrait of Swaggart that emerges from your interviews with the prostitutes and the other associates and other possible witnesses to the Swaggart story? Tell me about this guy. What was his problem?
I don't think anyone knows. If you really think about it, Geraldo, when most of the allegations that are now coming out are put in a chronology, they all seem to have evolved from about the time that he first became prominent in the secular media. Last March, thereabouts, following the Jim Baker scandal, when his picture appeared on the front of Time magazine, Newsweek, U.S. News and World Report. And suddenly we have hookers at about the same time saying that that's when they first began to see him cruising that area. Now, I don't know if we're going to date any of these visits prior to that, but it would certainly be interesting if that, in fact, is when it occurred. I talked, in the course of doing the 2 documentaries that we did dealing with the ministry, to perhaps 40 to 60 people who over a period of time were either members of the inner circle or had very close relationships with Jimmy Swaggart and his family. And obviously one of the questions that you ask is what is the moral character of this man? And time and again, I was reassured by these people, many of them who had axes to grind against Reverend Swaggart, that they would be shocked, stunned, if there were any allegations involving sexual misconduct.
And yet, at the same time, he is taking Jim Baker to pillory and post. At the same time, he is saying he's a cancer on the face of the ministry, that he has sinned and is not worthy of being forgiven. At the same time, he's saying those things so eloquently, so filled with passion. The guy is going out there to the red light district, and he's hiring hookers.
A field day for Freud. I don't know why someone, obviously he was lashing out at his own demons at the time. It is certainly something that someone with a lot more training than I would ever understand.
Okay, John, stand by, because we're joined now by Richard Dortch. He is the former president of Jim Baker's PTL television ministry, and I'm sure that he has something to say about the fall of Mr. Swaggart. Reverend Dortch is now president of Life Challenge. That's a group that counsels professional people with personal or business problems. Reverend Dortch, welcome.
Thank you.
It sounds as if Reverend Swaggart could be one of your customers.
That has been suggested to me on several occasions.
Now, I know this may sound unchristian, but do you take any satisfaction from the fall of this man?
No, and I'll tell you why, Geraldo. I would really have to question myself if I did, though I would be less than honest if I didn't say that 2 days before Jerry Falwell fired me, when I watched CBS News that whole day on the 26th of April last year, every newscast on every network, Jimmy Swaggart was calling for my resignation. Dortch must go. He must go. And I've had to really examine my own heart during this whole process, because it's a very honest question you've asked, and I'm trying to come up with the right answer.
Certainly, he is at the very least, guilty of galloping hypocrisy.
Yeah, and that's something I can understand, because I have to say to you that I am not proud of things that I did when I was at PTL, because the excesses and things that we did that were really not the thing we should have done. I'm not proud of myself, and I've spent the last 9 months going across America apologizing to people because I'm really sorry.
Your situation, your colleague Jim Baker's situation, Jimmy Swaggart's situation, is this an epidemic of immorality among those who are holding themselves out to the public as the champions of public morality?
Well, just today I did it because I wanted to know for sure. I looked up in the American Yearbook of Churches. There are 575,000 clergymen in the United States. And I don't think what we've seen, Richard Dortch's failure, Jim Baker, Marvin Gorman, Jim Baker, I don't think this represents truly what American church life is. I think it's an aberration that's a tragedy. And if I were any person today looking at a television minister, I think I'm just like everybody else. I'm wondering, who is he doing what with, and how many times and how long has it been going on? I can understand that.
Okay, let's continue to explore this phenomenon of ministers falling from grace. We'll hear from Jessica Hahn, from other ministers who have had their problems. We'll hear more from Reverend Dortch, from John Camp, the reporter, and other people. First, we'll take this break. We'll be right back.
Philadelphia brand cream cheese presents a few good reasons to get out of bed in the morning. Need another tempting reason? Ounce for ounce Philly's got just half the calories of butter or margarine. Philadelphia brand cream cheese. The reasons to love it keep spreading.
Hello, I'm Mike Donahue.
And I'm Shirley Hancock. If your child wants a Big Bird, Snoopy, or Garfield birthday cake, think twice. Tonight on Newsroom 6, Mark Hendricks tells you why some bakeries refuse to make them anymore.
Oregon State School Superintendent presents his revised age policy today. At 5, we'll tell you what it would do.
And if you're expecting a baby, we'll show you where you can pick up some discount maternity fashions.
In sports, the girls' AAA basketball tournament is down to 4 teams and expect some rain this weekend.
Join us at 5.
It's the sale you wait for. It's Smith's 12-hour sale, and it's Saturday from 9 a.m. till 9 p.m. only. Shop for single-day savings on furniture, appliances, and electronics. For example, all Simmons bedding is on sale, including the famous Beauty Rest mattress. Beauty Rest prices start at just $149, and you get a free bed frame with any Beauty Rest set. You can also buy Saturday with no payments and no interest until September. It's the sale you wait for. Smith's 12-hour sale, Saturday 9 till 9. Don't miss it.
Marshall McLuhan wrote, historians and archaeologists will one day discover that the ads of our time are the richest and most faithful reflections that any society ever made of its entire range of activities. Now to honor advertising through the ages, the Portland Ad Federation announces the first museum of its kind, the American Advertising Museum. The American Advertising Museum, here and now in Portland, Oregon. Open Wednesday through Friday, 11 to 5, Saturday and Sunday, noon till 4. For more information, call 226-0000.
We're back. Our topic, ministers who fall from grace. John Camp, the reporter for BRZ, the award-winning reporter who helped break the story, is still with us via satellite. John, you reported that your investigation revealed a fascination by Swaggart with pornography almost since childhood. What about that?
This came from a fellow minister, and it was not necessarily included in our reports, but we're aware of what the allegations were. Someone who had counseled with him for a period of time alleged that he had had this fascination. He'd never disclosed how it was manifested, if it was a private issue with Jimmy Swaggart, or if in some manner it manifested itself in a detrimental way. I think that that's probably the key issue, and I think one of the points that we have found in following Jimmy Swaggart, he really had no one that he could confide in. He was sort of in this position of omnipotence, where I think he was fearful of talking with anyone about what problems that he might have.
They certainly, Reverend Dorch correctly points out that there are over 500,000 clergymen in this country, so I want to be careful that we don't paint with too broad a brush here. But Swaggart, Baker, some of the others who have not had the major scandals certainly seem enamored of a very lavish lifestyle, one that would seem almost the antithesis of the message that they put out. How lavishly did Swaggart live? Does he live?
Very lavishly. He lives in a compound. His son has a home within the same 20-acre compound. We have heard stories and talked with people who have visited his home who talk about the extravagant furnishings of the home. Swaggart defends himself by saying, well, this is his only possession, that all of his wealth is tied up in his home. He has, in many instances, certainly downplayed what he's received from the ministry. He sort of talks out of both sides of his mouth. In one instance, he says, well, I donate all my money, the royalties from my records, to the ministry, therefore I'm entitled to receive some sort of income. At the same time, he will say, I receive little or no income from the ministry. So it's difficult to pin him down on what kind of money he receives from the ministry, exactly what his possessions are over and above. And if you take him at his word, the home and compound are valued something in the vicinity of $2 million plus. And there, of course, have been stories about the jewelry worn by his wife, Frances Swaggart, and many of the contributions, as you showed in the segment at the beginning of the program, the gifts that are given to the ministry. So one of the major allegations and one of the issues that we raised in both of our reports dealt with the apparent contradictions in his lifestyle and what he stated his lifestyle was.
Reverend Dorch, was there in PTL an addiction, not only to lust but to greed?
Yeah, I can't answer for Jim Baker, and Richard Dorch is a person I've got to deal with. Yeah, I should not have taken from our board of directors all the kindnesses that they gave us.
Please don't speak of kindnesses, Richard.
Yeah.
I mean, it is
well,
of kindness.
help me with the
You
word.
guys were bleeding that church. You were spending
Yeah.
a fortune on your personal lives, weren't you?
Yeah, but we got to remember, Geraldo, because we're going to get balance, and I'm prepared, as I've been doing, to say that it is a fact that we were in a lifestyle of extravagance. However,
You guys were living the high roller's life, weren't you?
yeah, but the board of directors gave us our salary. We did not make that decision.
But isn't it a fact that the little lady living in Toledo, who's living on a fixed income Social Security checks, who gives you the $50 or the $25, weren't you living on her money? Forget about this charade of the board of directors.
Yeah, that's true.
Joining us now, also via satellite, is the Reverend James Robeson. He is the author of the recent autobiography, Thank God I'm Free. Recovered, he says, from his own problems, he counseled Jim and Tammy Baker through their scandal. As I said, he joins us via satellite from Dallas. Reverend Robeson, tell us about, before I ask you the general question, I want to know about you specifically because the book is unclear on that. You talk of your own frailty vis-a-vis lust. Tell us about that.
Well, I think that I became so terribly involved in ministry and in the work of the Lord that I actually found my fellowship relationship, my intimacy with the Lord was broken. It was disrupted to some degree. I think that oftentimes we as preachers actually put our vision ahead of God. Sometimes our vision, however noble we may think it is, however virtuous, I think it sometimes becomes our God. And we can always justify it by saying that what we're doing is for God, we're winning people to Christ. But nevertheless, in the activity that I was involved in, my love relationship with the Lord Jesus Christ diminished. I found myself growing cold in my heart. I found the Bible became a sermon book, a tool of my trade rather than a source of life and refreshment. It became dull to me. Sometimes I would go for days and weeks and not read it unless I was preaching it. I'm ashamed to say that.
I want to know what you put in your life as the alternative to the Holy Scripture and to the teachings of Jesus. I mean, isn't it a fact that you lusted after women, that you lusted after material wealth, that you were a fellow traveler to the Reverend Baker who you counseled, a fellow traveler to the Reverend Swaggart who you see has fallen?
No, I wasn't a fellow traveler of Jim Baker. Richard Dortch can tell you I was one of the chief critics of Jim Baker. As a matter of fact, I did what, quite frankly, many saw Jimmy Swaggart doing. I would lash out at others. I would lash out at all sin, and I was, quite frankly, unbeknown, I was trying to frighten myself away from it. I was trying to somehow shout it away from me. I was certainly complimenting myself in that I was scaring everybody else away from sin so that they wouldn't have a tendency or a battle that I was going through, and quite frankly, I knew I was losing. And let me be very frank about the lust situation, because that's what really made me aware that I had a very, very serious problem. I share on page 115 in the book, Thank God I'm Free, which I have a copy of here that Thomas Nelson has just released. I shared in the book that I would actually come out on the platform and from time to time find myself drawn to some woman out in the crowd, and there was something established just in the eye contact that I knew was totally unnatural. It was beyond the natural realm, and it frightened me very, very much. And then, as I share in the book, which really startled me, I found that from place to place and city to city as I traveled, the very individual or individuals that I might have made contact with and felt this horrible lust in my heart, which was so frightening and disheartening to me, that those women would actually find their way to me when I would go out one of many exits. They would be in the hall. They would be on the parking lot, somewhere in the proximity of my
Reverend
car.
Robeson, let me interrupt you. I mean, does this sound like Reverend, or does this sound like a rock star? I mean, it sounds like they have groupies. And it sounds like, I mean, they're so charismatic, so attractive as Reverend Robeson is. I mean, I'm sure the ladies in the audience would agree. Jim Baker, a good-looking, charismatic guy. Jimmy Swaggart, God so filled with emotion and passion. But it seems that you were a lusty, gusty group. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back.
Get your spaghetti ready. Get ready for Ragu Thick and Hearty Spaghetti Sauce. Our thickest, heartiest sauce ever. Now your spaghetti's ready. Ragu Thick and Hearty.
A waxy stick for chapped lips, waxes for candles. Vaseline Lip Therapy is for lips.
Because it covers more completely, it not only heals, it helps prevent chapping. Vaseline Lip Therapy, original, and for more serious lip problems, new medicated.
Velveeta versus butter. Watch. Which melts better? Velveeta was just made to melt. Velveeta versus cheddar. See how much more smoothly, more evenly Velveeta melts. Never separates or gets oily. Try it yourself.
Velveeta versus a snowball.
Which melts better, more smoothly, more easily? Velveeta. Velveeta really cooks.
For free tickets to Geraldo, please write Geraldo, 311 West 43rd Street, New York, New York, 10036. Please send a self-addressed stamped envelope or call 212-265-1283.
For some time, we've asked people the one thing they thought our Mr. Big bath tissue should be. Big.
Soft.
And no matter who we asked,
Big.
soft. Or under what circumstances,
Soft. Big.
the answer was always the same. And happily, that's what two-layer thick Mr. Big bath tissue is. Big and soft. If there's one thing you want in a bath tissue,
Big. Soft.
this is both of them.
You'll find comfortable Lazy Boy chairs like this and hundreds more, all on sale during our Lazy Boy Showcase Shop's National Recliner Sale. Choose from the Northwest's largest selection of Lazy Boy recliners, now sale price from $248. Save big on sofas and sleepers in all sizes, styles, and fabrics. Queen size starting at $4.99. Now get 90 days interest free. This sale ends soon, so hurry into your Lazy Boy Showcase Shops, Portland and Beaverton.
Covering the news is more than my telling you the facts. It's explaining what's behind the stories. That's my job as a journalist, but I'm also a concerned neighbor just like you. At Newsroom 6, that's how we cover the news, as a group of concerned neighbors. We talk with the people whose businesses, families, and neighborhoods are affected. I guess in a way, we're working together to find reasons for and solutions to everyday problems. We know that's the kind of informed news reporting you've come to expect from us.
Reverend Dortch, was Jessica Hahn...
Don't leave me hanging here.
No, hang in there, Reverend. We're gonna talk to you in a second.
No, don't.
Was Jessica Hahn... That's Reverend Robertson. Don't forget him. He's still in the monitor. We got 45 more minutes. We'll come back to you. Was she a victim of this these human frailties, or do you think she was part of the Jim Baker's problem?
No, I have a different perspective of Jessica Hahn than most people do, and that is that my heart really goes out to her, and I have not had a retaliatory spirit to her. And the reason for that is, I think whatever happens in the ministry, I must take my share and blame and everybody else who's in the ministry. And the ministry had a great deal to do with making Jessica Hahn have the kinds of problems she had, and for that I am very, very sorry. I never have had a relationship with Jessica Hahn. I've only seen her once in my life. But my heart goes out to her, because the facts are there are thousands of young women who become involved in church work in churches, come through the experience, and they are wonderful, beautiful people and haven't had scars in their lives. So my heart goes out to Jessica Hahn.
Jessica, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Why don't you respond to what Reverend Dortch just said?
Well, I really appreciate that. I know everybody's really experienced a difficult time, and the bottom line is we all need to be loved, and we go to church because we have a need, and sometimes we get caught up in things, and it's obvious as what has happened today, that, things just happen, and it's not meant to be that way. I mean, ministers are meant to minister, but sometimes they just fall and make mistakes like everyone else, and some mistakes are larger and more noticeable and more painful than others, but it's a part of life.
Does Reverend Swaggert's experience make you more or less sympathetic to Reverend Baker's experience?
In my opinion, they're two totally different situations.
How are they different?
Well, Jimmy Swaggart, apparently, from what I understand in the news reports, had a woman who was, had consented to all of this. I did not give Jim Baker permission to do what he has done to me. And then to go ahead and deny it on national television and to change a story, it's very different. I mean, I looked up to this man. I'm not sure whether this prostitute is a Christian or not, but I certainly love the Lord, and all I wanted was to be a part of something good.
Did your experience with Reverend Baker change you, Jessica, in some substantial way? I mean, the first time I interviewed you a year or so ago, you seemed a shy and retiring type. Those of us who occasionally leaf through Playboy saw a different side of you, in a literal, I guess, as well as figurative way. Did it change you?
It's made me a lot stronger, and I realized one thing, Geraldo, that it should be understood that it's the message that is of value and focus, and not the messenger. And that has been one of my biggest mistakes, that I've learned that that's what's most important, is the message.
Do you agree, Reverend Dortch? The message, of course, is most important, but if the public doesn't believe the messengers, isn't it inevitable that the message itself will ultimately suffer?
Of course the message is damaged. Of course the message is damaged. But we still do have to understand that preachers aren't angels. You know, we've seen demonstrations of that. And we put the people on the pedestal. Now, given everything you've said and anything everybody else has said, the facts is we're the ones that have released our emotions, and we have participated in this. So I'm ready to take my share of responsibility. I was wrong on so many, many things. But let's not leave the impression that the public has been so driven in this that they didn't have a choice to make in some issues also.
I don't understand that. How can the public know
I'm simply saying that people who have strong feelings about televangelism, turn off the television set. Nobody's forcing you to participate in this thing, and where the failures have come, they're going to come to light. Obviously, what has taken place is the best evidence. If somebody's fooling around now, it's still going to come to light.
And you know what? I think that preachers should start getting back behind the pulpits and preaching. The church needs to be built up, not torn down, and there's no shortage of good preachers. And I believe that the people that are suffering most are the people that go to church. And I believe it's up to them to decide, where they want to go to church and who they want to receive their message from. And I know that, God hasn't changed. He's still the same. And people, they will fall and they will make mistakes. But I believe in this situation, the miracle of all of this is that I believe it's just going to make the church stronger. It's just cleaning up a little bit.
I wonder if that's true. I wonder.
I know.
Let me just tell you a quick story. I was in Houston, Texas last week, riding around with a cab driver who was an elderly fellow. And I want to get back to Reverend Robeson and everybody else. But I asked him, how long have you been driving his cab? He said, just 3 years. And I said, well, what did you do before that? He said, I had a small ministry in Oklahoma, in the state of Oklahoma. And I said, why aren't you doing that? He said, well, I couldn't make it. It was not self-supporting, etc., so I had to drive a cab. I said, how do you feel about the Swaggart situation? He said, my heart is broken. I have a young daughter who wanted to go to one of the religious colleges and take up the ministry, and now she's totally disillusioned. Many of her friends are disillusioned. They've decided that the church maybe isn't for them. They've decided that all is not what it appears to be. They've decided that hypocrisy really is rampant. And I wonder if Jessica is right. I wonder if there isn't some material, substantive harm done. Now, wait, Jessica, hold on, because we've got to take a break. Stay with us. Everyone, stay with us. We're going to continue this dialogue and meet Reverend Don Crossland, who I wanted to introduce to you 5 minutes ago, but we'll be right back after this, and you'll meet him then.
I'll never forget that night. Traffic alert. My throat was so sore it hurt to talk.
Try Sucrete Spray.
Maximum strength Sucrete Spray with diclonine lasts twice as long as the other brand.
Flight 8 clear for takeoff. Maximum strength Sucrete Spray lasts twice as long.
Oh, look, after 20 years. Michael loves Sarah.
haven't changed.
I take care of myself. And she takes Geritol Complete with nearly twice the iron of ordinary supplements.
Marry me? Again?
Geritol Complete for the best years of your life.
This is where we make nice and soft bathroom tissue. This is our fluffing machine. The printing press. Our paper softener. The perfume department. If you're getting the idea that we don't add expensive perfumes and prints, you're right, because that doesn't make it any softer. And if it doesn't make it soft, it doesn't make it at Nice and Soft. Nice and Soft. It's nothing but soft. Now at a new everyday low price.
I'm a mother, and you know what it's like to buy cheaper cuts of meat and things because you're trying to save money? My family hated it. They're so picky. So I've checked out Albertsons Supreme Meat. The meat is beautiful, and you won't believe the low prices, like everything else in the store. I'll tell you, it's just what I would do if I ran a supermarket. I guess great minds think alike.
Albertsons. We think like you do. On the next People's Court.
The pilot radioed home base. They in turn called the house to confirm the fact that they were over the house.
Did a wandering airplane spoil his birthday surprise?
He was supposed to fly a banner reading Happy Birthday, Angelica.
The pilot says he got as close as he could.
The steepness of the terrain in the federal air regulations are such that you have to fly at 1,000 feet above the nearest obstacle.
Weekday afternoons at 4:30 on KOIN TV.
Our program, Ministers Who Fall from Grace. Let's go back to a minister who has not. Reverend Robeson, you have the floor, sir.
Well, I thank you. I almost wondered if you hadn't inadvertently left my microphone open where you knew I was still here, if you would have come back to me or just left me hanging there with all the lustful rock musicians. I want to thank you for letting me come back.
Were you lusting for the microphone?
No, I wanted to finish what I was sharing. I was open enough to share that I had a serious problem, and I could naturally hear the audience laughter and your mockery. And that's expected from the world when a preacher has even a weakness, to say nothing of an absolute failure.
Do you fault us for that, sir?
The fact is that much of the Christian community has also had that attitude toward a preacher who admits he's in trouble. And therefore, many of them are fearful to say that I lusted. When I first confessed before all America on television that lust had actually taken a great hold of my mind and my thought life, I too was scorned and ridiculed and mocked. And so it's no wonder that many preachers are very much afraid to say, I've got a problem. But I think we must, and I think the Christian community and the church must learn not only the importance of repentance, but also the absolute necessity of restoration. What do we do with someone who has not only had a problem, but may have in fact fallen into sin? Are we going to trample them under feet? Are we going to laugh at them and mock them? Are we going to say that the message only works for the people out in the congregation, but it can't possibly work for a preacher? I believe that we're going to have to be totally honest and admit that we have deep needs. I found my relationship with the Lord was broken by good intentions, and as a result of it, my thought life became, in my opinion, so against the will of God that I literally prayed to die and actually tried to take my own life. But fortunately, I asked for help, and I was fortunate enough to get it. Someone was able to pray for me, and I was delivered from the power of what I consider to be a spiritual force that was coming against me.
I mean that. But do you think Reverend Swaggart, who only admitted his failure after being caught red-handed, do you think that Reverend Swaggart should have been given a 3-month suspension from his multi-million-dollar ministry? Do you think that by his coming out and being so tearful and passionate in his cry for redemption, do you think that he should have received a more severe penalty than a mere 3-month suspension?
I think that all men's actions will always be less than perfect, but I think they certainly want him to be helped. Now, what they've done is between them and God, but God is going to deal with Jimmy Swaggart, and God's interest is for Jimmy Swaggart to be free.
Can't the people deal with him now that he's still on earth?
Jimmy Swaggart needs to be set free, and he needs to find the power which he believes in, the power to overcome this problem. And God will not give up on Jimmy Swaggart. God wants to help him. And what we must do as Christians is pray for him. Now,
Okay.
how the Assemblies of God deal with him, that's between them and God.
Let me introduce our next guest. We're joined now by the Reverend Don Crossland. He was a Baptist minister until he resigned 2.5 years ago after admitting that he had a moral failure. Your words. What happened?
2.5 years ago, I confessed to the church my involvement in homosexual activities. And I now realize that I had entered a world of addiction. I had gone to a psychiatrist. I had talked with a Christian counselor. I had sought pastoral counseling. The church had begun to grow. We, in fact, were planning to build an auditorium that would seat about 4,000. And yet, the struggle inside of me was more than I could handle. I would cry almost every day. And still not being able to find help and a solution. And sometimes people would ask, well, you know, how could you preach? And yet this was in your life. And it was a real deception. It was a denial. It was like I put it in a compartment and I didn't know how to deal with it. And finally, I remember in desperation, though I'd done this many times, I just said, God, whatever it takes, I really want to be pure. And I want to be holy. And it was hypocrisy in my life. And my wife and I had gone on a trip in a church growth conference in Korea, had just arrived home. And the counselor whom I had shared with came to my door and he said, Don, can I talk with you? I let it slip, your involvement in homosexual activity. And he said, it's all over. And it was like a knife went through my stomach. And yet, in another way, I was relieved. I was relieved that the fear of exposure, the hypocrisy, the deception was all going to end. The most difficult thing, of course, was sharing with my family. My wife, who had known there had been a past problem but didn't know it was present. And,
you see it as a problem and not a sexual preference?
I see it as a problem. I see it as the wrong way to fulfill a legitimate need that was never met. To me, it was a nurturing need. A need for love. I personally feel the deepest need of the human heart is to be loved. And if a person has had or perceived an inadequacy, we will attempt to fill that need. The ministry became my God. And then in the need for intimacy, I stepped into that world. I feel it was a problem in that it was not God's best. It was a violation of my conscience.
Okay. I want to bring in a couple of experts to try and make sense of what is going on, if you perceive it to be a general problem. Talk more with Reverend Crossland, Reverend Robinson, Reverend Dorch, others. Jessica's still on the phone. First, we've got to take a break.
You bought a mobile home?
Today's manufactured home.
You bought a house!
Factory-built quality at a price that makes sense.
We have 3 big bedrooms. Oh, wow. I love it. It's a manufactured home.
Today's manufactured home.
You bought a house.
Built for living, built for life.
It's the sale you wait for. It's Smith's 12-hour sale, and it's Saturday from 9 a.m. till 9 p.m. only. Shop for single-day savings on furniture, appliances, and electronics. For example, all Simmons bedding is on sale, including the famous Beauty Rest mattress. Beauty Rest prices start at just $149, and you get a free bed frame with any Beauty Rest set. You can also buy Saturday with no payments and no interest until September. It's the sale you wait for. Smith's 12-hour sale, Saturday 9 till 9. Don't miss it.
We're joined now by a couple of experts. Jeffrey Hayden is the author of Televangelism, Power and Politics on God's Frontier. He's also a sociologist from the University of Virginia and an expert on television preachers. Sitting next to him is Terry Kellogg. He's a certified addictions counselor from Minneapolis who has counseled several dozen ministers. Terry, let me start with you. You heard Reverend Crossland. You heard Don's admission of homosexuality in his case.
Yes.
You heard Reverend Dortch confessing to greed and other things, I mean, in a very sincere way, but that's basically what it came down to. You know the Swaggart story. You've counseled dozens of these ministers. How many do you think are addicted to something like sex or money or lust or etc.?
Sex, money, alcohol, I would say anywhere from 20% to 35% have a primary addiction in their life. I would say that that's maybe, for some addictions, a little bit higher than the general population because I think the ministry draws certain things out of a person, and it also is a process by which a person can actually continue a seduction and the high of seduction. And I don't think we're really talking about, you know, immorality, and we're not talking about sex. We're talking about sexual addiction again, and it's alcoholism where the sex is the drug, and the high is the seduction process. And a minister who seduces can get on a roll and bring in more wealth and more money and more sexual opportunity, and they can also, you know, sort of protest against their own disease or illness. They can rail against it while acting it out. And
Jeffrey, on that point, excuse me, Terry, on that point, I joked before that they sounded more like rock stars running amok than men of God. You, in your book, talk of the gospel of prosperity. Is that the problem?
Well, I think that there are two issues here. On the rock star issue, these people are stars. They've risen from all of them from fairly modest means. They've been thrown into the limelight, into stardom, and they really aren't any different, I think, in many respects than people who rise quickly in athletics, in entertainment, and so forth. Now, on the gospel of prosperity issue, I think...
Can you save the gospel of prosperity? We've got to take another break, and then we'll get right to you as soon as we come back.
Here's something totally different. Summer's Eve Feminine Wash, the first external feminine hygiene wash. It's non-irritating, so you can feel fresh and confident every day. Summer's Eve Feminine Wash, the first cleanser for women only.
If you're concerned about heart disease and your doctor advises exercise, the right foods, and an aspirin a day, you should know that heart specialists recommend Ecotrin more than Bayer when they're concerned about aspirin irritation because it's safety-coated. Ecotrin, the one heart specialists recommend.
Have you heard?
Honey, where's my parquet?
Spread the word.
Right in front of you.
The parquet taste you love.
Parquet?
Comes in a great big tub. Okay, parquet.
Okay.
When it comes to spreads, for no cholesterol and the buttery taste of parquet, it's Parquet Spread.
Hey, okay, parquet.
Okay.
For transcripts, please send $3 to Journal Graphics, Geraldo Transcripts, 267 Broadway, New York, New York, 10007. Or call 212-227-READ.
To celebrate our 67th birthday, Paulson's guarantees both carpet wear and installation for 20 years. Backed by the winner of the stain-resistant wars, Trevera, and Carpet One, who also guarantees its lowest price for just $14.99 a yard, with a 20-year guarantee. Plus 27% savings today on the new Scuff Tough Inlaid Floor Triumph from Congolian, which even sneakers and running shoes can't mar. Sale price is just $20.75 a square yard at all 3 Paulson stores.
Just a reminder that every week in TV Guide, you'll find writing that's really worth reading. Pick up your copy of TV Guide. It's on sale now.
RB Furniture guarantees that our prices will be the lowest, even lower than other stores' sale prices. RB, the right furniture, the lowest prices.
Jeffrey, quickly, the gospel of prosperity?
The gospel of prosperity is a newborn theological belief that holds that God wants his people to be healthy and wealthy, and that spills over into this worldliness.
So he especially wants his preachers to be healthy and wealthy?
Not only his preachers, but his followers.
But the preachers first?
Well, some of them behave as if that's the case, don't they?
I have heard through various sources around the country in reporting this story that there's another big name about to fall. Do you have some information about that?
Well, there are a lot of rumors floating around, but I don't...
Would you like to share that with us?
No.
Terry, this is not peculiar to the charismatic Protestant faiths, is it?
Oh, no. A lot of my clients have been Catholic priests. The underlayment of a lot of religion is sexual
And let's
shame.
get Jewish rabbis. I mean, it's not, there's no monopoly on
No, Lutherans and, but that underlayment of a lot of religion is sexual shame. And most of the men I've worked with have been either neglected or isolated in childhood. A lot of them come from religious families, and that sexual shame becomes, the sexual repression and shame becomes sexual acting out and obsession.
Does the ministry attract men with this propensity? This
Of course.
weakness?
It's a way to put a stranglehold on the sexual obsessionness, but also a way of continuing the seduction process, because that's what the ministry involves, is seducing large numbers of people, especially the TV ministry, even more so. And so they become like rock stars. But what we find admirable in a football player is reprehensible in a minister.
On that thought, let's take a break.
If you never forgot VE Day, if you still feel proud of how we all pulled together, then you'll always remember the songs we danced to, romance to. Now they're back in a great new album that'll make you feel good again, wherever you are today.
Don't sit under the apple tree with anyone else but me. Anyone else but me.
Would you like to swing on a star? Carry moonbeams home in a jar.
Stage Door Canteen, 4 giant records, 44 hits from Bing to the Andrews Sisters, guaranteed to put the sing back in your swing.
And they said we better accentuate the positive, eliminate the negative.
Pardon me, boy, is that the Chattanooga Choo-Choo?
Yes, yes.
The stars at night are big and bright, deep in the heart of Texas.
All the memories, the magic.
I'll get by.
These were our times, our songs. Now all the original versions are captured forever in this 4-record collection.
Kiss me once and kiss me twice and kiss me once again. It seems to me I've heard that song before. Drinking rum and Coca-Cola.
44 songs, 4 big records in Stage Door Canteen. But remember, it's not sold in stores. Stay tuned to order now. To order, call toll-free 1-800-453-6500 to save all COD charges and pay only $19.98 plus $3 shipping and handling for 4 records or 3 long-playing cassettes. Use your credit card or send check or money order to Stage Door Canteen, P.O. Box 3345, Portland, Oregon. Remember to save all COD charges, send to Stage Door Canteen, P.O. Box 3345, Portland, Oregon.
Reverend Dorch, any final words of wisdom for Reverend Swaggart?
Well, I was so decimated when Jerry Falwell fired me that I went to a Jewish rabbi and I went to a Catholic priest to get help. Basically, Geraldo, there is no help for a Protestant minister. It is zero. And what I would say to Jimmy is there are a lot of people who love him and want to reach out and help him. But we have to begin doing what I'm doing, simply saying, I was wrong. I need help. And I have a psychiatrist that I'm going to today. We need to set preachers free. And I want to personally thank you, Geraldo, to set us free to get help. We need to do it.
Reverend Crossland.
During the last 2.5 years, I've been in a process of restoration, going to a professional counselor. And I've come to learn when everything is stripped away that God, who is our Father, really does meet that deepest need. And I would say to Jimmy Swaggart or anyone else, the one whom we have preached, Jesus Christ, finally and really is the one who will meet that longing.
Reverend Robeson.
Well, I want you to know that it's been a joy to me to have a part in Don Crossland's restoration and helping to make it possible for him to find it. And I think it's high time that we as Christians learn to reach out to one another when we honestly admit to a need or when we have fallen. And I just pray that Christians will do that. And I thank God that he is severe, but not nearly as severe and as unkind and unjust as sometimes media sources can tend to be. And I thank God that he's merciful and forgiving.
Okay, I want to thank you all, gentlemen, Jessica, and all of you. And let's be understanding, I guess. We'll see you next time, folks.
Services have been furnished to the Geraldo Show in exchange for these announcements. Hotel accommodations in New York City provided by the Omni Park Central in mid-Manhattan, near Carnegie Hall, Central Park, and Broadway theaters. Call 800-THE-OMNI or 212-484-3300. Transportation provided for by New York's most prestigious limousine service, where the service performed is truly personal. Esquire Limousine Service.
Jessica, if you're still there, what are your final words of wisdom as we go out?
I would tell Jimmy Swaggart to get back behind his pulpit and preach and let the people decide. They're the ones who are supporting him. And
Good afternoon. I'm Shirley Hancock. Coming up at 5, 1,000 layoffs at Tektronix and why you can't put Big Bird or Garfield on your birthday cake. Join us at 5.
This is our new chair. Beautiful, isn't it? That's not why we got it. Real versatile, too. Great for relaxing, reading, or watching television. That's not why we got it. Martha, why don't you show them why we bought it? That's the reason we got our cushion lift chair. Martha just didn't have the strength to get out of a regular chair by herself. She'd call me for help, and if I was out of hearing range, she was in a fix. Not anymore. Isn't that remarkable? Just press the button and the cushion lift brings her to her feet. Martha doesn't have to depend on me anymore.
At least not to help me out of my chair.
Now you know why we bought our cushion lift chair.
For a free cushion lift brochure, call toll-free 1-800-554-6300. That's 1-800-554-6300. Cushion lift is Medicare approved.
How to get in legal trouble over a birthday cake. The story at 5.